Hello and welcome to the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. Our guest today is Candy Miles-Crocker, and we're talking about her book, The Reality of Real Estate, the essential guide to planning, managing, and growing your real estate business. Welcome, Lady in Red.
Thank you, Lady in Red. Good to be here.
Now, we usually talk about health and wellness issues, and we're bringing this business issue because wellness and what business you're in and how you're growing and developing as a woman is part of our mission as well. Okay. Now, you didn't start off in real estate. You didn't start off your career in real estate. No. How did you get started?
Well, I started off, I'm a graduate of University of Southern California, and I worked at Gray Advertising for 3 years after graduation. Then I quit that job, moved East Coast, got a job, and that's how my radio career kind of got started in sales. And then as I started having children, I wanted to spend more time with them. And since I was a national sales manager, I traveled a lot. And so I had to figure out what career could I have that would allow me flexibility with my time to volunteer in the classroom, go on field trips, attend the soccer games and all that. And my husband suggested real estate.
So did you have an interest in it before? Is that something you knew anything about before then?
Nothing. And what's interesting is my dad was a real estate investor back in California, but you don't really, you kind of discount what your parents do. You're like, I'm not going to do that. Yes. And so he had us work on, every house that he bought or apartment building that he bought, and we were the crew. And so I guess kind of it was in my blood, I just didn't know it. And so with radio, I thought, I'm selling an intangible, but with real estate, it's just a tangible thing. So I thought, I could do that. And I kind of went in blind. I didn't do much research.
So there are different areas of real estate.
Yes.
What did you find yourself? What did you kind of fall into?
Well, I don't have a niche. I work with people who have money. So because when you're a new agent, you don't have the luxury of having a niche. You have to hustle just to get anybody to work with you. So generally it takes like 4 to 6 months before you even get a client. And so you have to stockpile money before you leave your other job, because it's going to take a while before your real estate business even picks up.
That's good advice for going into sales anyway. Yeah. I made the mistake when I was very young. It was one of my first jobs out of college was radio sales. I had no backup plan.
Yeah.
So I just jumped into it, didn't have a list, didn't have anything, wasn't given much instruction, and I failed.
Yeah, yeah. And that happens a lot in real estate too, because people get into it because it looks like fun. They watch it on television and they say, oh my God, it looks so easy. Excuse me.
And glamorous.
And glamorous and all of that. And I address that in the book. It's really funny what unglamorous things we have done as real estate agents. But it's a job. It's like anything else that you do, you have to work at it. And you have to set a schedule, and you have to pay taxes, and you have to know your numbers. You have to prospect. It is work every single day.
Well, you were a real estate person when the whole market thing.
Yes.
How did you survive?
Okay, so those are some of my best years because people always need housing. And so what I look at myself as I'm not a real estate agent per se, I just help people move forward in whatever that looks like for them. So when people have to downsize, when there's a divorce or a death or a birth or some kind of major life change, people need to buy and sell real estate. So all that meant was when I got into real estate, the market was like booming, and then it crashed. But all that crash meant was you have to work harder. And so I had some of my best years because I had to amp up my prospect. And I couldn't say, oh, woe is me, the market's not good. There are agents out there who are successful. I wanted to be one of them. And so that's what I did. I just had to amp up and get myself in gear.
I have several friends who had to get out of the business and never went back. So that's quite an accomplishment for you to have made it through that period.
Well, what we like to say, that weeded out a lot of people because people thought that they could do it part-time and just kind of, phone it in. You can't. It's a full-time job, and your clients demand all your attention. And so when the market, markets go up and down, your fixed expenses don't go up and down, they stay fixed. So you have to continue to do what you need to do to get business.
One part of the planning ahead you did is you said that you had some money aside.
Yes.
That for the just in case. How important is that rainy day?
Let me tell you, that is the best thing you could ever do. I had 6 months worth of expenses saved up. And it was 4 months before I got my first client. Not my first transaction, just a client. And so you need that money because it's stressful when you're paying money out and no money is coming in. So you need to have that backup of, I don't have to worry about it. I have money to pay my light bill, my mortgage, all of that kind of stuff until I get that first commission check.
What would you say to yourself during those months when nothing was coming in? What kind of self-talk?
Oh, okay, so I'm the queen of self-talk. So I said, I'm just feeding my pipeline. Everything I'm doing now is going to produce in the future. I just talked to myself that way every day. I got into the office every day at 8:30. When everybody else got in around 9:30, I was there setting myself up for success. Because if a potential lead came in the office at 8:55 and no one was there with me, guess who got it? Even if I wasn't on floor duty or anything, the consumer is not going to wait and say, well, let me wait till Stephanie gets in at 9. No, they're going to give it to whoever's there. And I made sure I was always there.
How did you build your client list? What were some of the techniques you used to make yourself successful with that?
Well, the average new agent only has one transaction their first year. And, I know. Exactly. It's hard to survive on one transaction. So what I did, knowing that, I was in the office. I did floor duty all the time. I did open houses all the time. So I had 14 transactions my first year because one transaction wasn't going to cut it for me and my family. And so I just made myself available. And your friends who love you dearly probably won't use you when you're a new agent because they don't want you to know, well, first of all, they know you don't know what you're doing. And secondly, let's just start right there. And then they don't want you to know how much money they make or how little money they make, what their credit score is. They don't want you into their business, their personal business. You might know them on a different level, but not their personal business. And so they just kind of shy away. In those 14 transactions, I had one friend who worked with me, and she allowed me to help her sell her condo and buy another home. But the other 12, I met either at open houses or on the phone. And that's how you build your business when you're a new agent.
You said that you deal with all areas of real estate. What areas are there for people? When I think of real estate, I think of renting office space or buying a house. Or what are some of the transactions you make with clients?
So most people think they'll do a geographical area, or they'll specialize in condos, or they specialize in over 55 communities or things like that, or new construction. I specialize in people who have money or want to sell their house. So I'm licensed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and I will sell a $150,000 condo, or I'll sell a $5 million house. I don't care what your price point is. If you have good credit and you can get pre-approved, I will work with you.
And does that all depend? You sit down with your client, and I'm sure each client is different.
Yes.
So you have to assess what you have and what you're working with?
Right. And that's what's so much fun. It's like everybody's situation is different, and that's why when buyers, get advice from coworkers and whatnot. Well, when I bought my house, yeah, your situation's different, the market's different, all that is different. But when you meet someone, you just say, okay, let's get you with a lender and see how much house you can afford. Because the last thing we want to do is start looking at houses, which is the fun part, and then find the house that you love, but you can't afford it. So the first step is just meeting with the lender to see what your credit issues are, if you have any. And I found that people who say I have credit issues, believe them, because they typically do. But a lot of consumers, they try to fix those issues on their own, and they don't know what to fix. And they'll spend money paying off something. The lender's like, oh, you shouldn't have paid that off. So always, no matter what your situation is, talk to a lender, and the lender can guide you through what you need to do to improve your credit. You don't have to go to a credit repair service or anything like that, pay any money. They will guide you as to what you should do.
What are some of the harsh realities of the business? We see all of these TV programs, as we mentioned, that make it look like it's a glamorous business. You're showing people homes and what they can do and what they can afford. What are some of the not so positive things about it?
The not so positive is just when you have to tell people that they can't afford to buy a house right now. That's uncomfortable, just because you look at their finances and well, I know, because I don't want anybody to be house poor. And so I don't want you to spend your last dime and all your savings tied up, because when you buy a house, things happen to that house. A house, a child that never grows up. And so you always have to have a rainy day fund. And when people spend their last on something, it's just like, I don't like that. So when I work with couples, for instance, I say, can you qualify on one income? Because life happens. And so you never want to see somebody, like when the crisis hit, lose their home or get in that kind of situation where they have to do a short sale or something like that. So that's not so pleasant to deal with. The other thing is, it's just dealing with nasty houses, nasty properties, and yeah, we walk into a lot of strange situations at houses. It's kind of weird what we do, you think about it, because people are, living there sometimes, and sometimes we walk in with squatters who are there, and it can be a little...
Wow.
Yeah, it could be a little interesting.
Do you find that people are gun shy because of what happened with the housing market?
Not so much. Not so much. Not in D.C. anyway. What we find more than anything is that people aren't prepared to buy. They don't have the down payment or the closing costs, because, usually you need at least 5% down. Then your closing costs in D.C. are going to be about 4%. So that's almost 10%. Do you have 10% in cash?
How does that vary from season to season? When is it good for the buyer? When is it good for the seller? How do you know?
Well, luckily we're in Washington, D.C., and so year-round it's a good time to buy and sell. We don't really have too many seasons. Like now, we think it's a great time. I put a house on the market Friday. We have one offer already in and expecting another one today. Whereas another property you could put it on, it just sits. So it's all about price point. And the price, if it's over, if it's like 1.2 to 3 million, those are harder to sell. But the sweet spot right now is between 5 and 7, 5 and 800,000. Those move pretty quickly.
I hear that things are booming in the district, but what about people who want to live more in the suburbs? Is it pretty much the same thing?
The suburbs aren't as, the closer you're into D.C., the more active you are, and the more appreciation we've seen that people get from their properties. The further out you go, because the further out you go, there's more new construction. And so if you have an old home, if you will, or a used home, then you're not going to get as much appreciation on that, because somebody can go out a mile further and buy a new house instead of buying your used house.
Now, Candy, what do you look for if my husband and I were ready to sell our home and downsize? What do we look for in a real estate person? Do you get your cousin's nephew's brother who sold real estate in '87, or how do you look for a person who's going to be about you?
Well, first thing I think everybody does is Google you. And when you Google somebody, you can see their first page, the second page. If it's real estate related, then they're probably an active agent. You might want to ask, how many transactions have you had in the past year? Because the more transactions you have, the more experience you have. Because every single transaction is different. So the more transactions you have, the more different scenarios you're able to look at. Okay? Because there's always going to be some bumps in the road. So you want to be able to counsel you as a seller as to what to expect during that transaction. And if I haven't had any transactions, everything's going to be a surprise. And who wants surprises when you're selling your largest asset? So it's just an education process.
So is that something you had to overcome when you were just starting out?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you had to overcome it, but you just have to sell you, because people buy people before they buy product. So if they like you and you can get them to trust you, and you affiliate with a broker who has lots of training. That's one thing my broker had, was tons of training. Every week I was in training. And so you get to know more and more and more, because I'm telling you, when you first join a firm, it's like a foreign language. But you're like, what the heck have I got myself into?
Was that intimidating for you?
It was very intimidating. I thought maybe I made a mistake, because I didn't know what these people were talking about. We'd be in the sales meetings and they were talking about all these different things. I'm like, what is this? I honestly didn't know.
So it's more than just passing a test. There's a lot of training involved in it. Does it take a year, 2 years, 3 years?
It depends on how many transactions you have. So the real estate test, that is the easiest thing you will ever do in real estate, because 95% of that you will never use again. Because all that teaches you is the legalities of real estate. No one teaches you what goes into being a successful real estate agent. And that's why I wrote the book. It's like, you need to do certain things to be successful, but no one teaches you how to prospect, how to talk to a client, what happens at that listing appointment, what happens at settlement, what happens at a home inspection. Nobody teaches you that. So if you don't go to training, it's all by the seat of your pants. And you don't want that in front of a client.
What are the answers to some of those questions? What do you do? How do you deal with clients?
Yeah.
How do you, what's the answer?
Well, what you do as a new agent, you shadow an experienced agent. You say, can I come to your open houses? I won't. I just want to see how you run your open houses. Can I come to a home inspection to see how you navigate through that? Because a home inspection is huge. And what people don't understand, people think a home inspection is for them to ask the seller to repair everything in the house. Well, you know houses, they always have issues, right? So the purpose of a home inspection is for you, the new buyer, to prioritize what repairs you're going to have to do in the future, okay? So as the inspector is going around on the exterior, you start saying, okay, we need to get the hose spigot fixed, we need some grading issues done. Okay, that's not so bad. Then you go and you look at the systems. The hot water heater is 11 years old, lifespan is about 13. In 2 years, plan on looking at your hot water heater. So you try to manage their expectations and not say, oh my gosh, this is a sign the house is falling down, maybe we shouldn't buy this house. It's just a house. All houses are going to have some issues.
Yes, indeed. All houses are going to have something.
Yes, at some point.
So did this give you the flexibility you were looking for as a professional to deal with your children and deal with the demands of being a mother, a wife, and a professional?
What was great about it, and my definition of success in real estate was that I could spend more time with my kids. It wasn't a monetary definition of success. And I think we all get wrapped up in success thinking it's money, but for me it wasn't. It was time with my children. And so I knew I was successful my first year was when I got to volunteer at my kids' school. And the kids in the school thought Miss Crocker worked there. You don't work here, Miss Crocker? But so that just tells you how many times I was there. I was because my kids were all in the same school at the time, so I would just, every week I'd be in a different classroom. And at the end of the school year, my youngest son told me, he says, Mom, do you know you didn't miss not one of my soccer games? And I knew I hadn't missed any, but he knew, and he was like in second grade, that he knew at that age that I didn't miss not a single soccer. And that was my definition. I was like, I was a success right then and there because that's what I wanted to achieve, is spending time with them.
Wow, and that's so important when they're growing up like that, is for you to be there and they remember when they're in their 20s and 30s, they're going to remember that you were there cheering them on for those games.
Every step of the way. And I would go and pick up, when they got to middle school, I'd pick up my son from middle school and he's like, I thought I was going to aftercare. I was like, yep, I'm here. Let's do something fun. And it was just great to have that flexibility and to surprise them, you know, and just be there when they least expected it.
What would be your advice to African American women, the young African American women out here who are thinking about making that same step you did? And I can tell you what, from judging from what you said, one of the most important things would be to have that little nest egg, to make sure that you plan ahead.
Right. Well, not only have that nest egg, but have a supportive spouse or significant other, because it will take you time to, you know, get up to speed. And when I was a manager, I would literally, you know, call spouses and significant others and write them notes to say thank you for giving, you know, Stephanie the space to succeed. It does take time, and we thank you for your patience, because they see money, you know, going out and nothing coming in. And so you have to have that support system at home. And so you just have to prepare yourself for that and just know that you have to keep working no matter what, and just visualize what your life will look like when you're a success. And that's what keeps you going. That's gets you making those phone calls, doing the open houses, and doing stuff that, you know, frankly, you're like, I've been doing this and I haven't gotten any results. But you will. You're paying into it. And so at some point, you're going to be able to withdraw.
So what does the open house consist of?
So the open house is a lot of prep time. No one sees what you do in behind the scenes. So you're making sure the house is ready if it's your listing, but you're also running the comps for the whole neighborhood. You're going to visit those comps to see what the competition looks like. And then you are advertising on Facebook. You're promoting it every which way you can. There's different systems you can use, but you're promoting it. You're doing videos for it, and then you're being present. And open houses are exhausting because we're trying to engage the visitors, you know, for 3 hours. We're there trying to engage you and tell you about the house. And some people are like, get away, you're a real estate agent. But we're not there to pester you. We're just there to make sure that you know every aspect of this house. And so it's exhausting because we're trying to make a connection. Because if you don't want to buy this house, we want to retain you as a client to buy another house. And so by the end of it, we're done.
Now, you're a real estate agent trainer.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So I train agents in my office, and then I have my own online training company. And what I train agents on is running their business, the business side of it. Like you say, it's a lot of sales, but it's also a business. And so you have to know how to run your business and grow your business. And so right now we're in the process of planning for 2019 to say, okay, what are your goals? How are you going to get there? What activities are you committed to doing to achieve your goals? So I train agents on the nitty-gritty details of running their business.
And that's so interesting. You're doing the whole sales part of it, and you've got to do the paperwork and all that other stuff that has to be done.
Yes, there's a lot of paperwork. We use a lot of paper, and you have to know the contract. That's the biggest amount of paper, the contract inside and out, because we're responsible for people's money, their hard-earned money, tens of thousands of dollars, and we don't want to mess that up. If we make a mistake, it could cause you to lose $20,000. That doesn't feel so good. And you're not going to refer any business to us. So we have to make sure that we know that contract inside and out, all the addenda inside and out. The contingencies have to be on our calendars. We have to press people behind the scenes, because what we do behind the scenes is like a kitchen in a restaurant. It's just pandemonium. But what the client sees, it's just like, hi, Stephanie, everything is good. Your loan is progressing. Blah, blah. But we're pestering that lender. Has the appraisal been ordered? Is it in underwriting? Are there any conditions that need to be met? We're asking very specific questions behind the scenes to make sure that you go to closing in a timely fashion.
How much should the client know about that contract?
Well, they don't have to know as much. They need to know I like them to know how they can lose their money if they don't act fast enough. There are contingencies that our time is of the essence, which means they are, that's the deadline. And so you can't just like, well, I have to get the lender these documents. I just haven't gotten around to it. Well, you have a financing contingency, and you only have so many days. And if you don't perform, the seller then has the option to say, well, since you're not performing, we're going to void the contract. All because of your slowness.
You mentioned earlier in the show about sometimes you're walking into situations when you go into a house. I know when my husband and I, and this was over 20 years ago, and we were house hunting, and we were kind of shocked that how are you actually presenting this house for sale?
I know. It's sad.
People
it's
not
sad.
Flushing the toilet. I mean, just that would have taken 30 seconds. But I was turned off completely from the entire house because of that.
But there are times, like I had a seller once who I did a mailer and he used me, and I said, Mr. So-and-so, when are you going to clean the house? He says, when you sell it. So you don't have, sometimes the agent doesn't have control over what the seller will or will not do. I've sold 2 hoarder houses, and the hoard went with the house. So I never saw the whole house, never, because I couldn't. It was too dangerous. But when people have that kind of disability, they're not even able to clean it. And so you just have to say, you know what, we're going to sell everything with it. And that's such a sigh of relief for them. And like I said, we have to help people move forward. And I worked with this one woman for like a couple years, and I knew she could never do it. And so I just helped her just say, you know what, we're not going to make you do this. We're just going to have you sell it as is. And we got multiple offers on both houses.
Do you find going back to talking about the online training, do you find that easier for people to do because of the convenience of it? You were saying that you do some...
I do. And plus, it's the privacy of it, because a lot of times you don't want people to know what you don't know. And so you can just, do this little studying, at midnight on your own, and then you can present like you've always known it. So it's a privacy aspect. And
we also want to finish what we were discussing about what should young folks know if they're going to choose this as a business. And for you, you said it wasn't all about the money.
Right.
It had to do with raising your kids and spending quality time with your kids. What should they know other than, man, I can get into this and I can make a lot of money?
Okay, so you can make a lot of money, but not up front. You can't make a lot of money because it takes time to build that clientele. And you have to realize you don't know what you're doing. And so every day, your first transaction is, I always say, occupies all the space in your brain. You can't think of anything else. You can't prospect. You can't talk to anybody. It's like, am I going to make a mistake? Because we have a lot of liability. And so they have to know that it's going to take at least 6 months before you get paid any money. Any money. And by then, your savings are almost gone. You're trying to replenish, and you're getting nervous. So you just know that it takes time. And know, especially young people, you don't know everything. you don't have all the answers. And everybody comes into real estate with these preconceived notions, I'm going to run my business this way and this way. Well, I'm telling you, after 18 years, that's not going to work, but go your way. You know, I let them go their way, and then 6 months later, they come in and say, well, maybe I'll try Candy's way. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, that actually worked. I'm like, it did, you're kidding. You know. and so they have these preconceived notions that it's easy, that it's fast money, that it's a lot of money fast. But it's not, because when you get a commission, you split it so many different ways that by the time it gets to you, it's like, oh, this is all I get. You get to pay your own health insurance, you get to pay your own taxes, you get to pay your own Social Security, you pay everything on your own. So by the time you get that commission, it dwindles down.
I never understood this. Do you have to be affiliated with a major company such as a Long and Foster or one or the other, or can you do your own thing, or is it doing your own thing to be associated with the major company?
You have to be affiliated with a broker,
Okay.
unless you take additional courses to be an associate broker. I have an associate broker licensed in DC and in Virginia, so I could open up my own firm if I wanted to. But that's just way too much work for me. So
okay. So you have to be affiliated no matter
Right.
what. You
No
have
matter
to
what.
be
No matter what.
even if you're part-time, or they're part-time.
you can be part-time. We call them dual career, because it sounds better. Dual
Okay,
career.
dual career. That sounds great.
But you still have to be affiliated with a broker. Yeah, you can't be a renegade on your own.
Or you're not legitimate.
Yeah. Well, your broker's responsible for your actions, and so they want to make sure they monitor your actions.
And as you go along over these 18 years, have you had to take more and more courses? Like every year, do you have to do a certain amount of training?
Every 2 years, we have continuing education. I think it's like 18 or 19 hours of courses at fair housing and legislative updates and all that kind of stuff. So yes, every 2 years you take more and more courses and you spend more and more money. But but it's okay. It's okay. But the longer you're in it, the more you realize that I know a lot, but there's always more to learn, especially with technology coming into play. There's always something new to learn, and that's what I love about real estate. There's always something new. Like I said, every transaction is different, so I get to learn more about.
And it's just very clear that you love what you do.
I do. I do love what I do because it's so much fun.
So we've been talking to Candy Miles-Crocker, and she's the author of the book, The Reality of Real Estate, the essential guide to planning, managing, and growing your real estate business. She said you don't know it all, but you can learn it all.
Very true. And I always say you don't know what you don't know. So you need to just ask. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I have people ask me questions all the time.
That is so important. Ask questions, because you'll never know if you don't ask.
Don't assume. And when agents come to my training, I say I have an open door policy, so you can come in my office and ask me questions anytime you want. Just keep asking until you understand it. Because I want the consumer to have a great real estate experience, and they can't have a great real estate experience if they don't have a good agent.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You've been watching the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. Have a great day.